Smoke is rising over the Persian Gulf as the USS Gerald R, one of the most advanced warships in existence, has just experienced a serious fire on board, originating from its laundry spaces. 2 sailors are currently receiving medical treatment and are reported to be in stable condition. Meanwhile, off the coast of Basra last night, a U.S.-owned cargo ship flying a Marshall Islands flag was struck by an Iranian unmanned surface vehicle, with new footage emerging that captures the moment of impact. As a result, oil prices are surging, the stock market is plummeting, and this morning, the President of the United States took to social media to declare that all of this is, and I quote, a very good thing. On one side, we have a superpower that has launched a war it cannot finish. And on the other, a regime that was expected to collapse within days, but is instead hardening, adapting, and forging alliances with Moscow and Beijing. 2 powers that are more than willing to watch Washington bleed out on the global stage. The architecture of American global leadership, including alliances, credibility, and economic stability, is fracturing in real time. Not over years, but over days. And rather than scrambling to fix it, the man in the Oval Office is celebrating the wreckage. In the next few minutes, I will walk you through exactly what transpired in the last 48 hours, why every move Trump has made has empowered his enemies instead of weakening them, and why the geopolitical landscape you are experiencing today looks fundamentally different from the one that existed just 2 weeks ago. I have 3 pieces of evidence: Senate testimony, footage, and once you see the full picture assembled in one place, you will understand why this is not merely a military crisis, but an American unraveling. Imagine having a business partner who picks a massive fight with your biggest competitor, drags your company name into it, and burns through your joint savings at a rate of $11 billion a week to fund the conflict. Then, when everything is in flames, he posts online that the fire is actually great because it is keeping you warm. How long would you stay with that partner? How many clients would he have to alienate? How many deals would he have to ruin before you decided to cut ties? Keep that thought in mind, because that is exactly what Donald Trump is doing to the United States and every single ally still foolish enough to stand beside him. Drop your answer in the comments. At what point does loyalty to a leader become complicity in their destruction? Let's rewind the clock. When the first strikes on Iran commenced, the American public was assured that this would be a swift, decisive, and surgical operation. The regime in Tehran would buckle, and its military infrastructure would crumble. We were told that the Iranian people would welcome the pressure because they despised their own leaders. That was the pitch, the promise. Here's what actually unfolded. Nearly 2 weeks of relentless bombardment by the United States and Israel targeted energy grids, desalination facilities, and oil depots, turning the skies over Iran into something resembling a nuclear winter. Thousands of civilians have died, and after all of that, U.S. intelligence now indicates, according to 3 sources familiar with the situation who spoke to Reuters, that Iran's leadership remains largely intact and is not at risk of collapse anytime soon. Instead of buckling, the regime is hardening. Every bomb that falls on civilian neighborhoods, every missile that strikes schools or water treatment plants, does not weaken the regime. It provides the regime with exactly what it needs: a population that stops questioning its government and begins rallying against a foreign enemy. This is not speculation. The top NATO allied supreme commander in Europe, General Grinkovich, confirmed this in Senate testimony today. He told senators that attacking civilian populations historically hardens resolve, citing examples like the London Blitz and the situation in Ukraine. He also confirmed something the Trump administration has been desperately trying to bury. The United States hit an elementary school in Manabon, Iran, resulting in 150 girls and a total of 185 casualties. The administration attempted to cover this up until a 4-star general testified about it under oath. Now, let's examine the 3 pieces of evidence that illustrate how badly this situation is spiraling and why no one in Washington appears to have a coherent plan. Receipt number 1, the Strait of Hormuz and the collapse of credibility. Ships are being attacked in the strait at an alarming rate. 14 have been struck in total, with 3 attacks occurring on one day and 3 the day before. Iran's new supreme leader, Ayatollah Moabba, in his first public message to the Iranian people, declared that Iran would continue to leverage its power over the strait and hinted at opening entirely new fronts where, quote, the enemy has little experience and will be vulnerable. Meanwhile, Energy Secretary Chris Wright's own department falsely claimed on social media that the U.S. Navy was escorting commercial ships safely through the strait. This assertion was untrue and was later deleted, but not before it influenced market movements. People lost real money due to a fabrication from a federal agency. Wright later admitted to this in a hearing, labeling it a miscommunication and taking full ownership. However, here's the alarming part. The United States currently lacks the capability to safely escort commercial shipping through the strait. Yet a government agency publicly stated it was doing just that. This is not a mere miscommunication. It reflects a government that has lost control of its own narrative while simultaneously losing grip on the most critical oil choke point on Earth. Oil prices are skyrocketing, and Trump claims this is wonderful because America is the largest oil producer in the world, framing it as short-term pain for long-term gain. Tell that to the family paying double to fill their car this week. Receipt number 2, the alliance collapse and the Russian meeting. While American ships are burning and American credibility is sinking, pay close attention to who is in the room and who is not. Russia sent its envoys, including Kirill Dmitriev, the head of Russia's direct investment fund, along with senior official Ushakov, to Miami, Florida, to meet with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They did not discuss Russia's role in helping Iran attack American allies, nor did they talk about getting Russia out of Ukraine. The talks, according to the Kremlin press service, centered on increased economic cooperation and further sanctions relief on Russian oil. Let that sink in. Russia is actively assisting Iran in a war against the United States, and the Trump administration responds by flying Russian officials to Florida to discuss economic rewards. During a G7 video call, French President Emmanuel Macron finally snapped, publicly stating what others had been whispering. Nobody can understand Donald Trump's strategy. Nobody knows what the objective is. Macron demanded answers, asking, "What is the plan? What is any of this for?" No answer came because there is no plan. NATO Ambassador Matthew Whitaker appeared on regime media, and when asked about Russian support for Iran, claimed there is no public indication of Russian participation, and that Russia told Witkoff they are not helping. So the official American position is now this. Russia says it is not involved, and we simply believe them. While inviting Russian officials to Miami for sanctions relief talks, Washington was not leading the G7 conversation. It was the subject of it, and the silence was deafening. Receipt number 3, the propaganda war America is losing. Iran, China, and Russia are not only fighting with weapons, they are also waging an information war, and they are winning decisively. The Iranian embassy at the UN posted a memorial for the 168 school children of Manaban, labeling those responsible as the most evil people on earth. Iran released a propaganda clip mocking every American denial, stating, "We did not hit the school. America doesn't even have smart missiles. We care deeply about the Iranian people." The sarcasm cuts deeper than any press briefing Washington has ever delivered. China is piling on while Trump prepares to visit Xi Jinping to review Chinese soldiers and Project Toughness. The Chinese embassy in Washington is openly mocking his administration on social media. Meanwhile, Trump posts that Iran's national soccer team is welcome at the World Cup, but he does not believe it is appropriate for their own lives and safety. Read that again. He blew up an elementary school, labeled all Iranian people as menacing and nasty, and now he is threatening their soccer team. You do not defeat a regime by giving it martyrs and propaganda material on a silver platter. You provide the new Ayatollah with exactly what he needs to rally a nation of 80 million people against you. This is what losing an information war looks like, not through one devastating blow, but through 1,000 self-inflicted wounds, while your own government cannot even maintain honesty in its social media posts. If this narrative is connecting dots you haven't seen assembled anywhere else, you are already ahead of most people watching this unfold in fragments and sound bites. Hit subscribe right now. We are approaching 7 million subscribers, and this is moving faster than any single outlet can track. When the next piece drops, you need to be here. This story is accelerating, not slowing down. Here's the contrast that defines this entire crisis. Most leaders who initiate a war have an exit strategy, coalitions, and a theory of victory that extends beyond the first week. Donald Trump has none of that. He has lethality. He has Pete Hegseth talking about raining death from the sky. He has crater footage and a social media feed that reads like a man who confuses devastation with strength. Now look at what his adversaries are doing. Iran's new Ayatollah thanked his regional proxy forces and promised new fronts in areas where the U.S. is vulnerable. Russia secured a sanctions relief meeting in Florida while its partners attacked American allies in the Gulf. China positioned itself as the responsible power on the world stage while America bombed schools. While Trump posts, Iran strategizes. While Hegseth talks about kill counts, Russia quietly locks in economic deals in Miami. While Chris Wright deletes fabricated tweets about naval escorts, China builds a global narrative that America is a declining empire, run by a man who cannot keep his own agencies honest. Trump is not fighting a war, he is performing one, and every performance strengthens the coalition forming against him. You do not break a regime by turning its country into a wasteland while its leadership remains intact, underground, and untouched. You do exactly what General Grinkovich warned about under oath. You harden their resolve. You hand the Ayatollah the greatest recruitment tool he could ever imagine. That is not strategy. That is a complete absence of it. So, what does this mean for you personally? It translates to $11 billion a week of your tax money flowing into a war with no plan, no coalition, and no exit strategy. It means oil prices are soaring while the president tells you to feel grateful. It means 172 million barrels drained from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve with vague promises about replenishment within a year. It means every alliance America spent decades building is under unprecedented strain. NATO partners are openly questioning their relationships. South Korea is losing its THAAD missile defense systems. Taiwan is not receiving the military aid it was promised. Arab nations in the Middle East are watching their supposed protector create the very chaos they needed protection from. And here's the part that cannot be reversed. Once a global supply chain reroutes around American instability, it does not revert just because a president changes his tone. Once allies build defense partnerships with other powers because America pulled the Patriot batteries, those partnerships become permanent. The damage is structural, and structural damage does not heal with an election cycle. Let me present 3 scenarios for what happens next. Scenario 1, manage de-escalation. The remaining adults force a cool down. A back channel opens and some face-saving arrangement emerges where the U.S. claims victory, Iran claims survival, and the bombing stops. Oil prices stabilize and markets partially recover, but the structural damage remains. The broken alliances, the empowered adversaries, and the dead children, none of that rewinds. The alternatives built during the crisis, new trade routes, new defense arrangements, and new information alliances become permanent features of the global landscape. The relationship survives, but it carries scars for a generation. Scenario 2, global realignment. Other nations draw the obvious conclusion. You cannot depend on this Washington, possibly not any Washington. More countries hedge their bets, and more bilateral deals are signed without the United States in the room. Russia and China formalize their support networks into a parallel architecture. America remains enormous and powerful, but no longer the unquestioned center. This scenario is not hypothetical. It is already underway. Scenario 3, the escalation spiral. This is the scenario nobody wants to name out loud, but it is present. Iran opens new fronts, and proxy operations expand across the region. The Strait of Hormuz becomes functionally closed to commercial traffic. Oil prices soar to levels that trigger a global recession. Trump, constitutionally unable to accept anything resembling retreat, doubles down. More strikes, more civilian casualties, more global isolation. Somewhere in that spiral, a miscalculation occurs. A strike on something or someone that cannot be walked back. This war could stop being regional, and with a president who has no strategy, no coalition, and no advisors willing to say no, this outcome is far less unlikely than anyone in Washington is willing to admit. Here's what I know for certain. The relationship between the United States and the rest of the world will never look the same after this. Even if every bomb stopped falling tonight, the lesson has been learned by every capital on the planet. You never put all your strategic eggs in one basket. You build alternatives. You hedge your bets. Because the most powerful nation on Earth has just demonstrated that it can be captured by a man with no plan, no impulse control, and no comprehension of the machine he is operating. Iran did not do this to America. Donald Trump did this to America. The new Ayatollah did not start this war, but he is proving very effective at surviving it and ensuring the entire world watches as America stumbles. The question is not whether the damage has been done. It has. The question is whether we have crossed into territory where the term superpower requires a permanent asterisk next to it. Did Trump destroy American credibility, or did American credibility destroy itself the moment it handed the presidency to a man who treats geopolitics like a social media feed? Is this war a projection of strength or the most expensive display of strategic incompetence in modern history? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe, because the next chapter of this story, the Strait of Hormuz escalation, the G7 fallout, the Senate hearings, and the next Iranian front, is coming fast. This story is not slowing down, so do not look away. This content is commentary and analysis for informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or geopolitical advice. Please consult qualified professionals before making any decisions based on the topics discussed.